Hey guys, it's Alice. How are you? It is 8:47 p.m. It is dark outside, so I have my vanity lights on, and then I have my bedroom light on as well. Today we're going to talk about a pretty tough subject. I've been trying to make this video for months now, but it's just I've been trying to film this video all day as well, but as you can imagine, it is not an easy topic to talk about. Today we're going to talk about mental health and cancer patients and what goes through our minds. And disclaimer, I'm not saying everybody thinks this way. I'm not saying that everybody does this. I'm just saying that this is what I've experienced and this is what I've seen others experience. I am part of a Facebook group, or actually I'm part of a few Facebook groups for cholangio slash bioduct gallbladder cancer. So first and foremost, I want to thank you to the people, the members of those Facebook groups. Thank you so much, you guys. You have no idea, or maybe you do, how much you guys have pulled me through a lot of this. I'm going to try not to cry because I've been... Anyways, last week was a very difficult week for me. I had a couple of breakdowns, and one of the breakdowns I just couldn't anymore, and I actually posted in one of these Facebook groups, and but the amount of love and support and honestly just acknowledgement that I'm not alone, I'm not the only one going through this, like, it means so much to me, you guys. Like, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for having been there and being my rock through so much of this. I mean, sometimes the only other people that can understand what you're going through, mind, body, soul, are other people that are literally in the same shoes as you. And sometimes that might be the only place that we can even find comfort, you know. But anyways, again, thank you to those Facebook groups. Thank you guys so much. You guys have gotten me through a lot of crap, a lot of stuff. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I have my laptop right here, and then I have a notebook with a bunch of notes. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible because there's a lot we can talk about. I might do more videos or touch on more subjects or different subjects later on. But today we are going to talk about mental health and cancer. And if I have missed anything or not gone over, not talked about, or not acknowledged anything, leave comments down below. So we can either talk about it in there, or maybe I can do another video talking about those subjects. But let's get into it. Okay, so I made a bunch of notes, and to keep from getting too emotional and getting too off topic and going into one of my many tangents, I'm gonna probably try to just go down the list. So some of it might be out of order, but let's just see what happens. Okay. Oh God, honestly, I don't even know where to start. Let's just start from the beginning, right? From the beginning. Getting your diagnosis. It's never easy. You know, there's a few ways that we can find out, right? Some of us, depending on the type of cancer, and so disclaimer first, if this is something that's like too heavy for you to deal with or for you to listen to, talk about right now, feel free to click out of the video. If you really think that you're in a place where you're not healthy, you're not okay, please reach out and talk to somebody, whether it be another cancer group, whether it be like a support group somewhere, your doctors, a therapist, a psych, a nurse, a friend, a family, even a foe. I don't know. Talk to somebody. Don't sit there and think that you have to do this on your own and that nobody's gonna understand you. Like, somebody out there will. And sometimes maybe all we need is just to know that there are other people out there that know how we feel, you know. But please, if you are having a difficult time, please reach out, get the help that you need, talk to people. All right, so depending on the kind of cancer that you have, there could be a number of ways of how you could have been diagnosed or how you could have found out, right? So for instance, breast cancer. For us women, from early, we are taught to do self-breast exams, like at home, in the shower, or in bed, or whatever, you know, do like, and they teach you how to do like your self breast exam. And then when you start going to doctors and you go for like your yearly annual checkup and stuff like that, which you should always get a yearly checkup, no matter how old or young you are. The doctor there will also do a manual, you know, physical checkup on you as well. So a lot of times, like say for instance for breast cancer, you feel a lump, you're like, oh my God, what is that? Let me go tell somebody. You tell a doctor, they do tests and this, that, and the other, and then you find out if it's bad or not. Is it cancer? Is it not? Yada, yada, yada. For cholangio, it's not that cut and dry. We don't go around like, you know, feeling lumps in our liver and in our bile ducts and stuff like that, or in our gallbladders and stuff like that. We don't go around feeling ourselves up trying to feel for a lump. A lot of times, by the time that we are diagnosed with it, we've been in the hospital, we're jaundiced, we have severe pain, we have infection somewhere, you know, or maybe that led to something else, that led to something else, and you went to have something else checked out, but then they found this. So typically by the time cholangio patients are diagnosed, we're already at like stage 3 or 4, right? So there's like typically, there's the most common 4 stages of cancer. There's also a stage 0, believe it or not. But the most common stages are stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then within each stage, from what my doctors and what I've read online, there's like an A and then there's a B. So there's like a stage 1A, stage 1B, stage 2A, stage 2B, stage 3A, stage 3B, so on and so forth. So for me, I was diagnosed at stage 3. It wasn't confirmed until after my surgery, when they were able to send everything to the lab, where my pathology report came back and confirmed it was a stage 3A. But all during my treatment, they didn't know, and they couldn't really tell me if I was a stage 3A or 3B. The way they explained it to me is that 3B or B would basically mean that the cancer cells were definitely in my liver. Before my surgery, like all during chemo and stuff like that, every single time I took like an MRI or a CAT scan or a PET scan or anything like that, I did, my tests did show cancer cells in my lymph nodes. But they were very small, or they look kind of shadowy, or they would have moved since the last time you know what I mean? So because of that, they couldn't really tell me if it was a stage A or B until after, you know. So I could have very well have been a 3B, because they did see cells in my lymph nodes, but I'm assuming, or we're assuming, that maybe the chemo medications probably zapped some of those, you know, cancer cells in my lymph nodes. So that's why maybe after my surgery, my lymph nodes were clean, so I was you know, categorized as a stage 3A. But yeah, so for cholangio patients, we typically don't find out till like way later. And by that time, a lot of us, either it's spread or it's, you know, we have to have something removed, or, you know, it could be anything. Mine happened to end up resulting in a 50% removal of my liver after being able to shrink the tumor. Before shrinking the tumor, it would have been very dangerous to operate, and if I was lucky, they would have only had to take, I say only, but they would have probably only had to take 75 to 80%, which is a hell of a lot. But also, the liver is one of the most resilient organs in your body that can regenerate itself. So, at least I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. I guess like it depends on if you want to look on the positive or the negative side, right? I don't know. So for me, for instance, I always knew that something was going to happen, but I didn't know that it was going to be cancer. So for those of you that have seen my other videos, if you haven't, I do have a whole playlist of my entire cancer journey up until right now, or up until thus far. In some of the first videos, I do go over my health and medical history up until this point. So you can go back and see that. But really quickly, I had my very first huge medical issue when I was 14. I had open incision surgery, so I was cut from sternum to the top of my belly button. I had a cyst that they had to remove, along with the bile duct that it was attached to, and also my gallbladder that it was basically negatively affecting. So they removed all those, my gallbladder, the bile duct that it was attached to, and the cyst. So, and then they reattached my small intestines straight up to my liver. And that was when I was 14. So that was like over 30 years ago. And even my doctor at the time had even said, you may or may not have continued problems with this. You're only 14, so, you know, we really don't know. So I was always fully aware that it might come back to haunt me. But from that time on, I always had issues. I always had pain. I always had just discomfort and stuff like that as I got older. Indigestion, really bad heartburn. I was diagnosed with a severe case of GERD probably about 10 years ago, I'd say now. Yeah, I just had like really severely painful heartburn for like 3 months straight, and I could, okay, maybe not 3 months, I'm over exaggerating. It was like maybe 3 weeks, but I felt like forever. I finally went to the doctor and they diagnosed it as GERD. And I have a lazy esophageal flap. So I guess my esophageal, the flap on my esophagus didn't want to close, I guess. So that was causing a lot of the GERD, a lot of the gases and stuff like that. Not a fun time at all, but I've always had pain there. And then in 2014, I had a severe liver infection, which landed me in the hospital emergency room for about a week, and then I went home with a drain tube coming out of the side of my body right here with a bag and everything for about 5 months, multiple procedures, and yeah, that was my entire 2014. And even at that time, my gastroenterologist even told me, hey, this liver infection can probably come back. It's most likely going to come back. I'm pretty sure it's going to come back. It's just a matter of when it's going to come back. So we didn't know if it was going to take another 20 years or if it was going to be another 5 years. We had no idea. Well, fast forward, 2020, 6 years later, boom, lands in the hospital, same exact symptoms, pain in the side, just excruciating, just a lot of pain. Went back into the emergency room last year in June, very last week of June, and again was released from the hospital to go home with a tube in my side and a drain bag. And then a couple of days after I got home, my GI doctor from the ER who took the biopsy called me and gave me the results of my biopsy and told me it was positive for cancer. So, you've just been told that your biopsy or your results came back positive for cancer. What goes through your head, right? You can imagine. Let's go over some of them. So, why me? How did this happen? Yeah, how did this happen? A lot of us start trying to figure out, like I don't know, it's like this weird thing in our head. Like, if we figure out where it came from, how this happened to us, maybe it'll go away. Maybe it'll make us feel better. Maybe it'll just be better. It's not. So I did some digging, and based on the research that I did, the articles and different websites, Mayo Clinic, American Cancer Society, Liver Cancer Foundation, bile duct and gallbladder cancer. I read everywhere. I spoke to my doctors. I talked to my parents, because I knew that there was some, I knew my mother had some like difficulties when she was pregnant with me, but they don't really talk about it, right? So when I got this diagnosis, I was like, you got to tell me exactly what happened. Like, what the hell happened when you're pregnant with me? So after finding out that information and then putting it together with what I had been reading and what my doctors are saying and stuff like that, turns out there's a pretty good chance that I was born with an issue in the area already. So sort of like a birth defect, if you will. Some irregular cells, and yeah, I found out that my particular situation, I was going to end up with cholangio regardless, no matter what happened, simply because I was born with something that wasn't quite right. And I remember when I was 14, my liver specialist, which was, I guess, one of like the leading or even the best liver specialist at the time, and this, again, this is like 30 something years ago, I remember him telling me that it's very possible that I was born with this. And it was further confirmed when I had to request my paperwork from my first surgery when I was 14 and everything, and I actually tried to read through some of the, you know, doctor's handwriting and stuff like that, and turns out, yeah, that doctor back then has suspected that there was a possibility that I was born with some bad cells, I guess you could say, like a birth defect. And based on what had already happened when I was 14, and then the course of how my health took in this particular area, I was eventually, inevitably going to be diagnosed with cholangiocarcinoma. So that was interesting to find out that no matter what course I would have taken in my life, I was already born with the predisposition that I would end up with cancer one day. Cholangio cancer specifically. Take that to bed with you, right? So I find that out. Now, just dealing with a diagnosis of cancer is already hard enough, let alone trying to figure out where it came from, how it came, you know, stuff like that. There are also other ways or other reasons people have been diagnosed with this. I've read in different articles or different research sites and stuff like that, that people that are like in my particular age group and older, bile duct and gallbladder cancer is actually very common, or not very common, but it's more common in people of my age group anyways. It's just how happened that in my specific situation, I was born with a defect that inevitably would have led to cancer in the area. So that is the card that I was dealt. Now, other than that, what else goes through your head? Oh crap, I'm gonna have to go through chemo. Like, am I gonna survive this? How bad is everything? You don't know, you know, if it's going to spread or anything like that. Like, it's just, I'm sorry. It's a lot. There's so much in my head that I want to talk about, but it's just really, really hard to get it, to come out and make sense. So let me go back to my notes. Okay. So, okay. Okay, so we talked about, like, why me, right? Why me, and then side effects. Let's talk about side effects. When we start chemo, like for me, for instance, I started chemo, I was diagnosed and started chemo in the middle of the pandemic. So I never still to this day, I have never met my oncologist face to face. Still, oof, I gotta shift. I still have not talked to my oncologist face to face. I mean, yeah, face to face. I do have a appointment with him face to face in August, so that would be my very first time actually meeting him in person. All of our interactions have been through the phone or through his nurses when I go for chemo, or by email. So I've never met the man. I have no idea what he looks like, so that's gonna be interesting. But he's been very on top of it. He's been great, so I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, side effects, like when you're diagnosed, or when you're told that you have a diagnosis of cancer, you start thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my hair, I'm gonna be nauseous all the time, I'm gonna be sick all the time, I'm gonna look sunken in, I'm gonna lose so much weight, and this, that, and the other, I'm going to die. Like, what about my kids? What about my family? What about? Like, your head starts racing, okay? And then you start the chemo, and then you come to realize not everybody loses their hair. Depends on you, your body, the cancer that you have, the medication that you get, the treatment plan that you have, things like that. So I had 6 months of chemo, and I was on Gemzar and cisplatin, and I lost half of my hair. It looks pretty thick and full now, but that is because if you know me, you know that my hair is actually extremely, extremely thick. I was very, very blessed and fortunate for that. But since my chemo and cancer and everything, a lot of my hair has fallen out, and now I have like half of what I used to have. Also, I had to cut it because when you're dealing with being bedridden all day long hair down to your butt crack is just not the way to go. So at one point I did get like really freaked out and frustrated, and I just went. Also, I thought I was going to completely lose my hair. I didn't realize, and I didn't know that there are some medications that you don't actually lose all your hair, you know. And then the nausea. Oh my gosh, the fatigue, the nausea, all the normal like side effects that you hear every cancer patient go through. I'm telling you, I went through all of it. The difference is I was aware of it. I made sure to be aware of it. So I forced myself to eat even when I really didn't want to eat. You know what I'm saying? Think of it this way. Food is supposed to fuel your body for energy, right? If you don't put food into your system, how is your body supposed to have the energy to assist your chemo meds in fighting whatever cancer cells that are in your system? That's how I thought of it. So even on days and like, I would discuss this with my nurses every single time I went for chemo. They would ask me like the normal questions like, hey, how are you feeling? Your side effects, da da da. Are you feeling this? Are you feeling that? Are you eating? Are you nauseous? What are you eating? Things like that. And I would always tell them like, yeah, I've been nauseous, but I've been doing this, this, and this because I can't eat because this happens, but then I want to make sure I get some calories in me because I don't want to drop weight too fast, you know, because already your system is being wrecked by the chemo meds. You don't need to help the chemo meds wreck your body. You need to help your body stay strong as it can be in order for the chemo meds to do whatever they got to do. You know what I mean? So a lot of times I would have like high in fat or high in calorie meals, but small meals. As long as I wasn't nauseous, I was able to at least put something in my system. So even if a meal took me 2 hours to eat, I would still try to eat it. I would eat like a couple of bites every couple of minutes or every 20 minutes or something like that, as long as I was putting food into my system. But you have to remember that, you know, because you're so tired and you're so just like beaten from life, I guess you can say, that you just like, all you want to do is sleep. You don't want to eat. Like that's the last thing that you want to do. That's the last thing that you're thinking of is to eat something. For God's sake, what is your problem? You know what I mean? Like, I just want to sleep. I just want to puke. Just leave me alone. But you have to, you know, and then the medications that you have to orally take, like the steroids and stuff like that, and the painkillers, like, oh my God. I was on steroids and anti-nausea. So like when you're on steroids of that, like that high of a dosage, you're wired. And then you just completely crash. So not only are you dealing with the side effects of the chemo itself, but you're also dealing with your body being spiked up and then crashing over and over again every few weeks. It's extremely exhausting, if not physically, mentally. And I mean, oh my God, you know what I mean? And then you're trying to figure out treatment options. Should I do this first? Should I do that first? Like I was lucky enough that my treatment was pretty like straightforward. Like, this is what's wrong. This we can't do because of this, but we can do this, this, and this. Let's try this first. There are others out there that like they've tried this combo, nothing worked. Then they have to do this combo, then they try this, then they try this. So their treatment plan keeps changing over and over again. That has to be a stress, not on you physically, because your body's going through all these different changes in like medication on top of the disease, but now mentally you got to shift because like you were just being told, okay, hopefully this medication will work. Sorry, it didn't work. So let's try this medication and hope that it will work. So you're constantly on a revolving door of a mind fuck because you don't know if the medication or the treatment is going to finally work or not. The stress and the anxiety that you feel, and then not only that, but physically, like you're dealing with like what's going on in your head and what's going on in your body at the same time. And half the time you can't even explain it to somebody else so they can help you. Either you don't want to explain it, or you don't even physically have the energy to explain it, or maybe you don't even have the words to explain it. Or maybe it's just too hard for you to even tell somebody about it, so you're suffering all by yourself. And then you start getting like the friends and family members that are like starting to get upset with you because like, why don't you want to get up and do this? Well, you're always sitting in the house like feeling this way. Why don't you? We literally physically cannot. Like, there are times where we physically cannot get out of bed. It's not that we don't want to, it's just that we are physically incapable of doing so. Either physically we're so tired and so in pain or whatever those symptoms are, or we are mentally so exhausted that we can't even deal with life right now, kind of a thing. And then we have outside influences that are like friends and family or whoever that are so upset, like, why did you do this, da da da. Like, you have no idea what's going on in my head. But I understand, because like they can't possibly fathom what you're going through. Like, I've been a caretaker and now I'm a now I'm a cancer patient. I still can't fathom some of the things that I am experiencing that are running through my head, let alone when I was a caregiver looking in from the outside. So I get it. I understand. Like, my friends and family, they're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. And I'm just like, well, I don't know what to do because I can't, like, I'm frustrated because there's nothing you can do for me. Like, there's nothing you can do. This is just how I feel right now. Like, and it's so frustrating to us, you know, as patients, because we feel like we've completely lost control. We've completely lost control of our health, making any type of decision of our day-to-day life. We can't even, like, we don't even know if we can make a decision about next year, let alone next month, or what we're gonna eat later on. Like, sometimes it's just psychologically too much. Physically, it's too much. And then let's talk about recurrences. So let's say, for instance, for those of us that were lucky enough to, long story short, get to a point where we can be considered stable or even NED, no evidence of disease, NED, clear margins, you know. When doctors tell us NED, we know it's not really NED. It just means that there are no cancer cells large enough to be detectable by any technology that we currently have. Once a cancer patient, always a cancer patient. There's the possibility of just like cancer cells being so microscopically small in our system that there is no way, there's no technology right now that can possibly see something that small, but it's constantly in our system. That's why we talk about survival rates and recurrences and stuff like that. So when you start looking at like how I could have, like, why me? How did this happen? Like, and you try to trace back to like how you would have ended up with cholangiocarcinoma and things like that. Like, you are inevitably going to run across reoccurrence or survival rate, right? So the way they measure it, and it depends on, okay, as a generally speaking, it's like 100% scale, like 100 people scale, right? So, and it goes by like a 5-year survival rate, and then it's what we call reoccurrences of like the cancer came back. So when I was kind of researching like how this all happened to me, where this could have came about for me, was I born with it, was, you know, whatever, I came across a bunch of websites, and it depends on what website that you Google or that you look on, and then what year the study came out and all that kind of stuff, obviously. But depending on the kind of cancer that you have, it can be different survival rates. And this is like a 5-year survival rate, right? So I was looking, and like, for instance, Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think that I can't pronounce half of these medical terms, so I apologize. But Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think it's pronounced. I think I read somewhere that it was like a 40 to 50% survival rate. Breast cancer, I've read anywhere from 75 to 90% survival rate. And that's in like a 100% scale. So meaning people that have breast cancer, out of 100 people, out at the end of 5 years, there's a good chance that 75 to 90% of those people will still be around. Okay, will still be alive. For cholangiocarcinoma, bile duct gallbladder cancer, 5-year survival rate, depending on the website that you go to and that you read from, I've seen anywhere from 5 to 20%. 5 to 20%. Which means, at the time, like, for instance, out of 100 people, like, let's say, for instance, I was diagnosed last year, right? So out of the 100 people that were also diagnosed with cholangio last year, in 5 years, out of all 100 of us, maybe 5 to 20 people may still be alive. So now you really start talking about your mortality. You really start thinking, like, what is my mortality? What does it mean? What about my kids? What about my partner? What about this? What about that? You start, like, your mind just starts going crazy, because now you're seeing, like, oh my God, like, I may not even be around here. Luckily, hopefully you'll be part of the 5 to 20%, but if you're not, like, I can't. Up until my cancer diagnosis, like, I was just living with liver problems. You can live with chronic illness. You can live with, you know, but to know that you have a cancer that could possibly kill you in 5 years. The survival rate is so low for the type of cancer that you have. Imagine what goes through your head. My daughter's 24. If I'm not part of that 5 to 20%, in 5 years, I may not ever see her get married, have kids. I've read stories of people from diagnosis to the end being as short as a few months. By the time a cholangio patient is diagnosed, like, I'd like to think that I was one of the lucky ones, you know, because I always had issues in this area, and first sign of anything, I ran into the hospital, you know? Like, I would like to think that I got lucky, but are you really lucky when you are dealt the hand of cancer? Like, I recently found out that cholangiocarcinoma is, like, on the Compassions Act or something like that. So basically, if you go and you apply for Social Security disability insurance, because, like, right now I'm currently on state disability insurance, right? There's also Social Security disability insurance. And I recently found out that when you apply, when you have cholangio and you apply for SSDI, not only is the approval time pretty fast, but it's almost 100% approved for SSDI. And when I looked into it further to find out why, because a lot of people are saying, oh, no, you have cancer, you gotta file for SSDI now. Especially if you're gonna be, like, out of work for over a year, blah, 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 right? So I was just like, well, They were like, yeah, because SSDI, Social Security, takes, like, 6 months or more to get approved. So I was like, oh, shit, okay, like, all right. So I eventually applied for it. I was approved in 3 weeks. Because cholangiocarcinoma is considered one of the most aggressive cancers with the highest mortality rates. So because of that, we get approved and pushed through pretty quickly. But just so y'all know, Social Security disability insurance ain't shit. So, just so you know. And it's a hell of a lot of paperwork, just so you know. So, as you can imagine, like, there's a lot more, like, here's my big ass list, right? And then I also have a couple of lists on my phone that I was taking notes on as, like, topics started coming to my head and stuff like that. Oh, Scanxiety. Anxiety for your scans. Scanxiety. Oh my god. It is so freaking real. So, for a lot of us cancer patients, depending on the type of cancer and stuff like that, you have to go back to get tested and everything every so often on a regular basis to make sure that everything is, like, under control. If there's any reoccurrences, they can get at it right away, etc., etc. And so, like, for me, I think we're settling. Well, I guess it's going to be determined when I do actually visit him again in August, because that would have been 6 months after my surgery. So he had basically told me that we will probably do scans on me, like check-ins and like, excuse me, checkups and tests and scans and stuff like that, like probably every 3 months or so. So he hasn't really decided on that exactly yet. It does depend on, like, how aggressive your cancer is and if it's spread and, you know, all that kind of stuff. There are some NED patients out there that, you know, for the first 8 years or for the first, like, 4 years, they have to go get tested and looked at and, like, you know, everything, just to make sure that they're clear, like, every 2 months, every 8 weeks, you know. So my first follow-up is going to be 6 months after my surgery, which is going to be August. And then after that, depending on what my oncologist wants to do, we might go to 3 months, we might go to every 6 months. I don't know. I guess we'll see when the time comes. But it's going to be something I'm going to have to deal with and do for the rest of my life. Like, not just a simple, like, oh, yearly, you know, physical with my doctor or anything like that, but I'm going to have to go get blood tests and some kind of either a CT scan or MRI or something like that every X amount of months, just to make sure that I don't have a reoccurrence. Meaning, just to make sure the cancer isn't back. And if it is, I jump on it right away and figure out the course of treatment and then start all over again. This is going to be our lives. You know, so excuse us if we're not always in the best of moods. Excuse us if we come out on the other side of this, or, you know, during all this, with a different view on life and a different, you know, way to approach things. It's so hard to stay positive. Because there's this constant voice in the back of our head of doom and gloom. You know? I think I'm going to cut it here for now. It's getting late. I need to eat. I haven't eaten since breakfast this morning, and it's like, it's 9, oh, you can't see it, but it's 9:30 at night right now. I'm gonna make some food. I need to eat something. Oh, and I need a break. Told you this is heavy stuff. I hope I made some sense. Again, please guys, if you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. I can't stress that enough. We're already going through enough. Join a group. Go to a support group. Talk to your nurse, talk to your doctor, talk to a therapist. I actually have started therapy. I actually have a psychiatrist that I have a Zoom call with tomorrow regarding medication to see if I should be or if I need it or not. I have been having really bad panic attacks, and anxiety is always just a part of my life anyways, but the panic attacks have gotten worse. I think because now my body is not, you know, under the influence of like all the chemo meds and the painkillers and, you know, all that kind of stuff, numbing it out, that it's finally like reacting to, you know. Yeah, so I think I'm just gonna end this video right here. Once I edit this video and I see what I did cover and I didn't cover, I'll try to make notes and I'll do another video if you guys need or want me to. Anybody who's watching this right now, if you have anything to input or anything like that, or want me to cover on the next video, please definitely let me know. Again, this is a very difficult subject to talk about. Yeah. So I wish everybody nothing but health, and just stay strong. You're not alone. We're all going through this. We've all thought what you thought. We all think what you think. We all feel what you feel. Don't ever think that you're alone, because you're not. Okay, I'm gonna go and make something to eat. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.